Okay, I don't know how much time I have on this camera, but I want to talk about some basic tips for stealth camping, and I'm going to try to stay on topic, and perhaps I'll come back and make more videos. Number one, keep moving. Keep moving, and also, take time to savor the moment where you don't have to keep moving and you can save your gas money. So gas is an issue that is slightly different for each individual, depending on the vehicle. Some RVs, for example, talk about living in your RV. Start up, like other vehicles, and you can drive them. Myself, I gotta wait 10 minutes. So I have additional time for the RV to warm up. That is something to take into consideration. If you're also in the same situation, you can't just do that every day unless you're willing to spend that money. Also, like right now, it's good to get out and actually scope places by foot, not by vehicle, because it attracts less attention. Of course, I always attract attention to myself when I'm filming, so I'm not necessarily scoping this spot out, but walking down here. But when you're driving, there's a certain amount of anxiety. I know that's how I feel. Looking around, paying attention for other cars. I really need to be able to get out and walk around and fill the area. We're also at different levels of sensitivity. So, some people don't have an issue parking next to smart meters and having 3 cell phones in their pocket. Myself, I can feel the difference in energy. Remember one time parking my teardrop camper behind a Whole Foods in Portland, Oregon, and just feeling bombarded with all that artificial electromagnetic energy. Appearances do mean something. Right now, I don't look like a homeless person, and I'm going to be applying more effort towards certain things, whether I like it or not, like shaving at least every other day, making sure I have a haircut at least once every 3 months. There's a certain amount of discrimination, especially in certain areas. Here in Colorado, there's a false notion, belief that everybody in their RV that came to live here off the grid because they just don't understand the beauty of this area, it's assumed that's just done in response to legalization of pot and that people came to live on welfare and food stamps. And this is dehumanizing to treat people that want to live closer to nature as bums and degenerates. Maybe some may be seen that way. Yes, some people are dirty. We are, by the way, however, surrounded by dirt and surrounded by beauty and historic places where Native American tribes and other humans came here to pay their respects or connect to nature. It's sad that the machines of today's world believe that humans today don't also have the same rights, inclinations, or desires. It's as if humans today are being treated as subhumans simply because they're here today in this time-space reality and they're expecting us to conform to the machine. Okay, so there's a lot of people that just don't understand why people have unplugged, and they may not understand because they're sheltered what life is like around the world. So protecting yourself is important. Realizing that even some police officers, even though they should be educated, a lot of them have no idea what's going on in the world. Absolutely no idea. So the empathy factor isn't there. So make the right preparations. And understand you're going to come across some people that are just not going to listen. But basic tips on taking care of yourself, I go back and forth with drinking coffee. Practice adopting a healthy lifestyle to where you're not smoking cigarettes and you're not an alcoholic or you're taking time away from the cigarettes. I really recommend a lifestyle with less sugar, less caffeine, more healthier foods when you're on the road. Because when you're on the road, and say also you're breathing gasoline or other things, your body needs to detoxify. So it's important to stay clean. If you have access to a gym or a sauna, you should use it. But in some cases, I don't, because I'd rather be alone, because I'd rather not deal with some of those personalities in the gym. So at the moment, I'm putting some extra emphasis on, getting some exercise inside the RV, maintaining basic hygiene with what I can inside the RV. Try not to let yourself go because of the way that the world treats you. That means brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, certain things, but living a healthier lifestyle is more important than living a lifestyle to where you're bombarding yourself with chemicals. So just in general, without getting too off topic, I recommend staying away from certain perfumes and certain aftershaves, certain colognes, because that stuff is toxic. By living a healthier lifestyle, drinking good water, getting BPA-free jugs. You know, if your car can fit 6 to 8 of them, get 6 to 8 of them. Fill them up at your local Walmart, reverse osmosis filter. Don't mess with the little plastic bottles, you know, but eat better and drink better. And be responsible with the disposing of your waste. So, you know, if you're in a certain area, parking your RV, there's a certain amount of eyes that are on you and people making assumptions. And so, you know, developing small little strategies. For example, you know, I like it when my RV is clean, so I make sure there's no trash in my RV. So I take out my trash little bit by little bit, not big bags, but like one plastic sack full of a few things. I don't currently use the septic system within the RV because I don't want that sewage and that smell following me around. I do use the bucket technique, whether people like that or not, because it keeps the smell out of the RV. And I'm able to maintain a better environment within that RV as long as the main septic tank is empty. At least that's how I feel at the moment, and that is a good way to go through the winter when things like fecal matter and urine freeze. You know, it's better to dispose of your personal waste bit by bit and little by little as opposed to letting it build up. Now, of course, in an off-grid setting, how's it going? In an off-grid setting, of course, you can absolutely set up compost toilets and things of that nature. And if you do it right, you can do it without contaminating the earth. And the $5,000 septic systems, which are currently required by a lot of the counties and cities in, you know, the general area around Alamosa, they're working with a plan that is not necessarily guaranteed to protect the environment or 100% necessary. And so that's creating an unnecessary regulation and unnecessary reason why people are being cited on their property and being asked to leave. And so, you know, that one issue is going to continue to be an issue for years to come. There's definitely a disconnect, you know, between modern science and technology and what we've discovered about how to deal with our own personal waste and these old backwater rules and regulations that are being passed by these counties that are forcing people back into the city and outlawing living off the grid. So as long as this continues to be an issue, there's going to continue to be more people that are building up in the cities, parking their vehicles, and there will still continuously be this sense of discrimination and resentment towards people that are moving to new areas. So it's important that people navigate through this and understand what they're up against. You know, employ certain parking strategies and to not partake in certain actions that could result in them getting targeted by local law enforcement or making someone angry in the community. I'll mention a couple examples real quick here before the camera dies. You know, I saw on another YouTube channel there was a father and son, and they came up from California or some other place, and they had their RV parked in a Portland neighborhood, and they were running a very large generator in a neighborhood outside. And they were acting surprised that the cops were called on them. And it's unfortunate that the cops were called on them for parking in their RV for multiple days. But it's important that people employ a sort of strategy to where, you know, they're not making a lot of noise. they're not on the radar. And so running a generator, having a domestic dispute with somebody, coming and going from the RV at all hours of the day or night, other factors, people need to think about what those particular things are. The only time that I've actually ever had the police bang on my RV was when my transmission was out, and it was about a month ago, and it was here in Alamosa behind the Family Dollar. And my solar system wasn't working because I had a fuse out. And now I fixed the problem, and I know what the problem is. But at that moment in time, I was using a shortcut. I was actually plugged into the wall to run my computer while I organized, finding someone to repair my RV. And so that resulted in 3 cars pulling up, them, running my ID, telling me to pull my hands out of my pants, show me your hands. Are you from here? All because I went on the radar by being seen plugging into the wall, even though it was just a few minutes. And so, it's important that you employ some sort of strategy of invisibility. And at the same time that you employ this invisibility strategy, that you also build a life for yourself away from your RV. I'm at least a mile from the RV. I make sure that I get time to get sunshine, to where I separate myself from the RV, like separating from someone that you're in a relationship with. Maybe some of you need space from someone, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your kids. Well, I also need space from my RV, to where me being an RV dweller is not my only identity, right? And so, because I like to distance myself from the RV, at the same time, while I employ a strategy of being invisible, I'm also now employing a strategy of trying to be a little bit more clean cut, because it doesn't really match the stereotype. So when I'm coming and going from the RV, it's like, that's not too different from the truth. It's like, I'm just here on vacation in between trips, and that kind of is the case if you look at my wider journey. I'm not really homeless. The RV is my home. The earth is my home. What I am is without land, where I know I can live on that land like a few years ago and not be ran out by code enforcement because I don't have a septic. So, this is kind of a new experience, I think, for RVers and off-the-gridders, to be stuck in an urban environment, not totally broke, but have a little cash, but to be in a state of pretty much waiting for things to improve and get better, have a new location scouted out. But right now, there's not a lot on my radar with where I'm to go from here. And I am thinking about that here in Alamosa. I can either stick this out for another year, keep parking my RV around the general area, continue to save, and then invest in some land later this year or next year. Or other land will make itself known to me outside the state, or other opportunities where perhaps, if there's a studio or a major career possibility, I may relocate.